Okay, so now we're going to learn some periodic trends. What are periodic trends? So here's the big idea. Patterns of properties emerge from the arrangement of electrons on the periodic table and give it predictive power. So basically, there are things that we can know about the periodic table that depend on how the electrons are arranged. So let's put some patterns together. What do we know about protons and electrons? So if one thing is positive and one thing is negative, we know that opposites will attract. Then what do you know about electrons and electrons? So two negative things are going to repel. They're going to push each other away because they don't like each other. They're like sworn enemies. So if the radius of an atom is smaller, which force is stronger, attraction or repulsion? It's going to be attraction because when you have something small, your protons and your electrons, so the protons in your nucleus and the electrons in the cloud are going to be really close together and they love each other. We are going to talk about two sources that have influence on our periodic trends. The first is called effective nuclear charge. Effective nuclear charge is how strongly the nucleus pulls on the electrons. So protons in the nucleus have a positive charge because that's where the protons lived, in the nucleus, and they attract the electrons because the electrons are negatively charged. And so when they have some sort of attraction, they literally bring them closer together. Like you bring in someone that you like into a hug. That's basically what protons are doing to the electrons. So basically, when we're going across the same period, remember period means row, the more protons you have, the more Zeph you have. So what does that mean? That means that the more protons you have, the stronger that hug is, that pull, the stronger the love is. Okay, so the more protons that you have, that means stronger Zeph you have, the more Zeph you have. Okay, that means you are more love leads to more attraction. So when you're bringing in someone that you like close into a hug, then the radius, the space between the nucleus, the positive and the electrons, the positive protons and the electrons are going to get smaller. The more love you have, it's like you're bringing them into a closer and closer hug. So that means you're getting closer and closer together. Okay, so let's look at what this means on the periodic table. This only applies going across the periodic table. So only talking about going left and right. So the fewer protons you have, the less strength you have, the less pull you have. So every time you think of the word Zeph, think about the word pull. Less protons, less pull. Like if you're forced to hug like that person you don't like, you give some of that weird side hug, right? The less attraction you feel, right? But on the other side, when you go across the periodic table, you have more protons on the right-hand side. More protons means more Zeph, more pull, more love. That leads you to the more attraction. So you're pulling them into a deeper, more intimate hug. So you are physically closer together. The next influence that affects our periodic trends is the electron distance, which is influenced by how many energy levels that you have. So when you go down the periodic table, energy levels are added, resulting in the outer electrons being further away from the nucleus. What I mean is, like, you first start out with 1 level, then you have 2 levels, then you get 3 levels, and look how much bigger we are getting every time we add an extra level. So down the same group, okay, so we're talking about down a column, the more energy levels you have, those are your little rings. That means you have a larger electron distance. The electrons are further and further away from the nucleus. So the increase in the outer electron distance from the nucleus results in the decrease of attraction between outer electrons and the nucleus. So the more energy levels that we have, these are your rings, the larger the distance. So the nucleus in the middle, right? You have your little protons in the middle are getting further and further away from all your electrons, right? So the further away the electrons are, the less attraction you have. It's like out of sight, out of mind. Protons can't see the electrons because the distance is too far. Okay? Distance is too far. That means you have a large radius, okay, a larger radius, because the size, look at the size right here, is so large, okay? This only happens when we are going from top to bottom, okay, up and down a group like this, okay? So basically, if we're looking here, fewer energy levels means fewer rings, okay? That's here. Like hydrogen only has that 1, right? But francium has a lot. So you have a ton of rings down here, okay? So more rings, more distance, less attraction. Out of sight, out of mind, okay? This only happens when we're going up and down the periodic table. So earlier we talked about Zeph, that's going left to right. That's about your protons. Now we're talking about energy levels, which is going up and down between your few rings versus a lot. Okay? So let's recap. Effective nuclear charge is all about the pull. Your protons love your electrons. And what affects electron distance? It's all about how many energy levels we have. Those are your little rings, okay? The more you have, the further away you are.